Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 presented by Stakes here. We are talking about Alabama and Connecticut. That game will be Friday night, 8:30 Central, I think, Blake? That's the Phil Knight Invitational out at Oregon. Boy, I really wanted to stay up and watch the second half of Alabama and its win over Michigan State, which we didn't quite see coming because of experience. For reasons that my voice will make clear, I did not do that. But anyway, what I've seen of Alabama this year, Blake, very, very impressed. Brandon Miller carried the Tide last night to an 81-70 win over Michigan State. And my goodness, I'm starting to get 2 year ago vibes with this team where Alabama won the SEC and just was so good.
Yeah, I mean, we always said it was never a question of talent. It was just, I think, having the reference point of how disappointing last season was that I think made you be a little bit more wait and see on Alabama this season than, again, the talent would have suggested. But now that we've seen it, I know it's only been 5 games, but I think it is very clear that, and we said this in the Michigan State preview. We said, look, if Alabama wins this game, it wouldn't shock us at all, just from the talent standpoint. Because I said I thought
Experience was our issue.
right, and we said I thought they were the better team, and I think I said that exact phrase. But Michigan State had been more tested to that point. Of course, they played Gonzaga, they played Kentucky, Villanova. I mean, they had been tested, but we wanted to see it with Alabama. Well, now that we've seen it, I mean, it is something. And again, I think that's where, like we said, I think right now, and there will be other people that will argue with this, but I think Arkansas and Alabama are the 2 best teams in the SEC right now. And I think you look at kind of the setup here, and like I said, Brandon Miller has gone from freshman of the year in the SEC type guy to player of the year in the SEC type guy. Both, because he's that good. And I think, from what we saw in that game against Michigan State, again, you saw a team that just played with a ton of confidence, didn't get off to a great start, but just started to, again, it's sort of like Alabama, right? They rev the engine and they just get going, and they're a team that's hard to stop. And we've kind of said that about a lot of Nate Oates' teams. There is those big boosts of momentum, the runs they can make. I mean, they got up by 18 midway through the second half last night against Michigan State. It's just those runs, and they are very hard to stop when kind of you're in that scenario against Alabama, because they have so many different options. We said might be the deepest team in the SEC. And so, Tide entering this game with a lot of momentum.
Yeah, the Tide had some depth already, and now Javon Quinterly is back. He plays 19 minutes, scores 10 points last night. We're doing this on Friday morning. Yeah, I just like they have so many parts. They can do so many things. Miller, I've said this before, he is appointment TV if you've not seen him.
Yeah, I mean, no, he's, like I said, he's terrific. I mean, he is one of the best players in the SEC. He is one of, if not the best freshman in the country that we've seen to this point. Yeah, I mean, he's something else. I mean, just think about it's the efficiency too, right? Like, the guy's been pretty efficient from 3. I mean, look at his numbers there: 4-7 against Michigan State, hit 7 against Jacksonville State, 4 against South Alabama, 4 against Liberty. His ability as a 6'9" freshman to step out and make those kind of shots. It's been more efficient from 3 than he has 2. But, good rebounder. Just, I mean, he's got all the tools. And we knew that going in. We knew this guy was, a future NBA type star. It just kind of was the setup that you could see with him and his skill set. So, yeah, I mean, averaging 21 points per game to this point. I think that's what's interesting about this Alabama team is, they've gotten off to a really good start here. But, like, you look at it, they got 2 guys who are averaging double figures. Miller and Mark Sears is averaging 13.6. But then it's like, we talk about the options. I mean, you've got Amari Burnett at 9, Rylan Griffin at 8, Jaden Bradley at 7, Clowney at 7, Gurley at 6, Quinterly at 5, Bediako at 5. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Like, that's 9 guys that are averaging at least 5 points per game. And I know that 5 is not a lot, but when you break it all down, man, that's a good depth for this team. And yeah, it is led by Brandon Miller. So
before we talk Michigan State, let's give a quick shout to our sponsor, Stakes. Before we talk about UConn, excuse me, let's give a quick shout to our partners at Stakes. We're not playing 100% this morning.
That's all right. You're playing.
One of us is not. That's right. Predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs With stakes, players can forever cement their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Go to playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. Best part about that is it took me a minute to realize what I'd done. In any case, UConn. What can you tell us about UConn?
UConn, not Michigan State. That I can tell you with 100% certainty. But what I will tell you about UConn is that, of course, Sonogo is, boy, he's good. And I think he's averaging pretty much 20 points a game, about 8 rebounds, something like that. He's going to, I mean, just a really talented player that's will block some shots, and he will be able to, I think, test Alabama. Both with his offensive skill and his defensive skill. So you talk about someone like that in this game. That's a big part of the equation. And two, I mean, let's remember who we're talking about. We're talking about UConn here, coached by Dan Hurley. You know what type of style they're going to play. They've not allowed an opponent this season to score over 64 points. Now you take that for what it is. They played Stonehill, Boston University, Buffalo, UNC Wilmington, Delaware State, and then Oregon, which Oregon I know was without some guys, but still, I mean, UConn was very impressive in that game, hit 17 threes. They went 17. It was kind of maybe the flip of what you see in Alabama. Didn't really need a lot of that against Michigan State, but UConn hit 17 threes against Oregon. And so that was, a pretty impressive performance there in terms of hitting those shots the way they did. Newton and Hawkins combined for 10 of those in that game. And yeah, I mean, so UConn riding a pretty big high right now as well. But like I said, you have to remember who the coach is here. And I think that, you're going to get a hard nosed defensive team that is really, I think going to be pretty aggressive here in terms of how they approach this Alabama team. I think defending the three will be a big part of the equation because, again, I think Alabama will need to make some threes, just given, I think, how UConn will game plan to sort of stop what they can do elsewhere. But, I mean, opponents only shooting 25.9% from three against UConn right now. So, yeah, when you look at it from that standpoint, I mean, this is a team that's pretty balanced, like we just said. I mean, Sonogo, Newton, Hawkins, Caravan, they're all averaging 10 or more. But then you've got three guys behind that that are averaging at least 8.7. So you've got good depth on both sides. And I think for a second game in a tournament like this, that's a good thing for both teams because you have depth here. They're both going to play, some guys significant minutes beyond just their starting five. And so I think that makes the matchup a lot more interesting because, again, depth is important in these kind of tournaments, especially when you're playing the high level competition that you are. And so, yeah, it sets up to be a pretty nice matchup here.
Okay, any parting thoughts before we go?
Well, I mean, I think this is a game, like I said, if I know Alabama fans don't want to hear this because we've been playing the reverse mojo game here on Southeastern 14, where when we pick against the SEC teams, they usually win. But I tend to think Alabama is just, they're in a good spot here based on what we've seen from them. And, I look at just how this matchup plays out. UConn is just, there is something about this UConn team because I think, Chris, this is probably more of a toss-up. I haven't looked at the line yet. I'm curious. I don't even think I've seen it yet placed at this point, but I'm sure it's out there. But I think just kind of when you look at how these two teams match up, UConn's the more experienced team in terms of having guys, that just kind of look at their lineup and how they're built. I think that can be valuable here in terms of having what basically I guess they start four upperclassmen. Let's not forget too that Hassan Diarra is there, who was at Texas A&M. He's on that team now, and so he'll play some minutes as well. And we really liked kind of how he was developing at A&M. Ooh, it's a hard game to pick. Another one of these kind of tournament games, these neutral court environments. So I'll pick Alabama this time. I guess I picked against them last time. Don't run away, Alabama fans. Like we said, the reverse mojo. You're hearing me pick you right now, and I said if you haven't followed if you follow my stuff before, this was kind of a running joke for years with Alabama fans. We used to have fun with this where every time I pick Alabama, they would lose. Every time I pick against them, they'd win. So they're not going to want me to pick them right now. But I just, when you look at the way Brandon Miller's played, the depth, you mentioned the one thing, getting Javon Quinterly back, I think just gives this team such a big boost because he is kind of that proven, commodity in terms of everybody else that they brought in, but like you're going to be able to rely on him. He's going to play more minutes. But this is going to be a challenge against a tough, hard nosed type team that you're going to get from Dan Hurley. good on the offensive side, good on the defensive side. But these two teams are virtually even. Ken Palm has Alabama at 11, UConn at 12. So flip a coin here, Chris, because this should be a fantastic game, I think. And again, just given what we've seen from both teams, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is a game that comes right down to the wire, and really could go either way just based on the matchup.
Yeah, Ken Palm has Alabama by 1. Bart Torvik has Alabama by 2.5.
There
In
you
any
go.
case, we are previewing all kinds of basketball games. We're previewing every single football game involving SEC teams this season. That'll go into the bowl season and the playoffs. We do live streams Wednesday night. Best way to catch that is hit that subscribe button, and I promise sometime soon I will chime in with a better voice and more intelligent comments. We'll just leave it at that. But anyway, thank you for watching us at Southeastern 14, presented by Steaks. We'll see you again soon.